Ginger Feed presents 10 of the most brutal torture techniques. Number 1. This incredibly cruel method of execution originates from ancient Persia. Sometimes also called scaphism, a criminal was contained inside a pair of narrow rowboats, or in some variations a large wooden tub, with his head, hands and feet protruding outside of the container. The person was then forced to ingest large amounts of milk and honey until developing a severe diarrhea, and a mixture of milk and honey was also rubbed on the exposed parts of his body, attracting flies and other insect species. Then he was left afloat on a still pond or a lake. Number 2. The brazen bull, sometimes called the Sicilian bull, was an execution device designed by Perilaus of Athens in the year 560 BC. The bull was hollow, crafted entirely from bronze, and it had a door on one side. The criminals were locked inside the bull, and a fire was set under the statue. The fire heated the metal until the criminals inside died from severe burns. The scorched bones were then often made into bracelets and sold at market. Number 3. Often known simply as the rat, this was an especially cruel and gruesome method of execution. Originally used in medieval China, described as the most brutal torture technique ever devised, it employed live rats eating through the victim's flesh. Number 4. Skinning alive, also known as flaying, was one of the most gruesome execution methods ever conceived, especially prevalent during the classical antiquity. It was used mostly on captured soldiers and dangerous criminals. Number 5. Impalement on a pole was one of the most gruesome methods of execution, often used during the Middle Ages. A criminal was forced to sit on a thick, sharpened wooden pole. The pole was then slowly raised upright and the criminal was left to gradually slide further down the pole only by his or her own weight. The pole then emerged through the victim's chest, shoulder or neck. Sometimes it could take more than 3 days for a person to finally die in a slow and painful way. Number 6. The Catherine wheel, also known as the breaking wheel, was a medieval torture and execution device. The criminal was tied to a large cartwheel, with his arms and legs stretched out. The wheel was then slowly rotated while the executioner smashed his limbs with an iron hammer, heavy metal bar, or even another cartwheel, breaking the bones in many places. Number 7. In execution by boiling, the criminal was stripped naked and then thrown into a cauldron full of boiling liquid, or cold liquid, which was then heated to the point of boiling. Sometimes, the executioner controlled the speed of boiling by raising and lowering the victim to the cauldron using a system of ropes. Number 8. The crucifixion is an ancient execution method in which the criminal's hands and feet were bound or nailed to a wooden cross-like structure. It was a capital punishment reserved for slaves, traitors, heretics, and usually the worst of criminals. It became widespread during the reign of Alexander the Great, but it still remains in occasional use in some countries. Number 9. Sawing in half was an incredibly cruel execution method, used mostly in medieval Europe. During the process, the criminal would be hung upside down from a tree or gallows, and a large saw would then be used to slice his or her body in half, starting with the crotch, all the way to the chest and head. While some victims were cut completely in half, most of them were only sliced down to their abdomen, prolonging their agony. Number 10. Originally from China, this was one of the most brutal execution methods ever fashioned. It was in use roughly from the year 900 until it was banned in 1905. It was a punishment reserved only for the harshest of crimes, such as treason or fratricide. During this procedure, a sharp knife was used to kill the criminal by gradually removing portions of his flesh over a very long period of time. Thank you for watching another amazing video, and please remember to hit the subscribe box for many more.